Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the Arrowhead Kingdom Chiefs cast live from the Wolf Den. I am Chris.
And I'm Josh, and today we're going to be talking Chiefs rookies and boy bands. So a big reminder that all Chiefs fans are invited to join us for game day. Visit arrowheadkingdom.org to learn more about the group and to find your local chapter. And please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel.
Our topic about the Kansas City Chiefs today is the most sensible and obvious analogy.
Yeah,
Brian,
I think
go
out of
ahead.
every guy born in the early 80s, mid 80s,
Yeah.
there's one thing we won't shut up about. It's boy bands and
That's
how
right.
that relates to professional football. And yeah, so I'm quite frankly, I can't believe it took us this long to start talking about this right now. Like I say that, I know I'm sounding cynical right now, but this is actually kind of a brain teaser. But yeah, this should be fun.
And in reality, it is kind of shocking that this is the first time that we're doing something like this. And we're, of course, presented by Complete Weddings and Events, your leading provider of photo, video, DJ, photo booth, lighting, and coordination services. Visit them at completewedo.com. So like Brian said, we're going to be comparing Chiefs rookies to boy bands.
Not just any boy band, international sensation, New Kids on the Block. Now, I don't know about you guys, but my sisters had their posters up. I didn't like them very much. I didn't listen to them, but my sisters liked them a lot. So yeah. I had to do research on all the characters or the people in the boy band. Turns out Marky Mark was a part of that. Did you know that?
He was.
So yeah, I did. And his older brother, who for the most part is famous for being his older brother and a member of his family.
The guy who owns Wahlburgers is a part of it. Did you know that?
Correct. Yeah. And Brian, I would say that I had a pretty similar interaction with New Kids on the Block. They got popular about the time that I was getting into the middle school age type of range. And I have to say that I absolutely hated those guys because all the girls that I was suddenly noticing more than I ever had before were not really interested because they were looking at posters of New Kids on the Block.
It's hard to compete with that. That's hard. They can sing and they can,
yeah.
You know?
And so downright impossible, I think, is the first thing. So in the early 80s, let's just talk about New Kids on the Block for anybody who's not damn near middle age like we are. A guy named Maurice Starr, who was famous for putting together New Edition, decided to do another super band group. And so we went to, I think it's pronounced Dorchester, Massachusetts. We actually know that it's Dorchester, Massachusetts, Dorchester, Mass, where all the Wicked Pisses go for all of our New Englanders, and put together New Kids on the Block. And there are 5 founding members that are pretty much intact today because they are touring again. The Wikipedia timeline, take Wikipedia for what you think it's worth. I think generally for stuff like this, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
but
that's fine, yeah.
1984 to 1994, they took the hiatus. Then they got back together in 2008, and they've been together since. They've toured a bunch of times. A handful of them, we'll get into this, took a little bit of solo career action in the late 90s, and I think we all remember hearing those on the Casey Kasem Top 40, who was born to read the morning announcements. So let's go through first the lineup of the New Kids on the Block, and then let's go through the lineup of the Chiefs rookies and see if we can line these guys up with each other. How's that sound?
So Dorchester, what is it called?
I think it's pronounced like Dorchester, Mass.
Okay, you reminded me of a saying that goes, the 3 hardest things to say is I'm sorry, I was wrong, and Worcestershire sauce.
Yeah. Well, in the Boston area, it's Worcester. So
Worcester.
It's
okay.
Worcester. It's like Worcester and Dorchester.
All right.
But it's Dorchester is how it's spelled.
Okay, good. All right. Now I think I'm locked and loaded then for Boston.
So it's all the Boston guys. And I'm sure if we're saying this wrong, we're going to hear about it, which is perfectly fine.
Yes. Let us know. Are we wrong?
Please comment.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
We miss you guys.
That's right. Exactly. We do read them all, just so you know.
We do.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, we read them.
Exactly. Okay. So like I said, we're gonna go through both, but I think I'm gonna kind of flip the order. We're gonna mention the Chiefs rookies first. So the first pick we picked was Nick Bolton, linebacker from Mizzou. Then next we took Creed Humphrey, who's a center from Oklahoma. Then we took Joshua Kando, who's a defensive end from Florida State, followed by Noah Gray, tight end Duke, Cornell Powell, wide receiver Clemson, and finally Trey Smith, offensive lineman from Tennessee. So
now, do we want to throw in undrafted rookies as well?
You know, I mean, we certainly can if there's anything that you feel really strong about. So, who are the undrafted rookies that we'd be listing?
Devin Key comes to mind. But, I'll probably think of some more as we go along here, but definitely Devin Key. He's been kind of a training camp starter.
Gotcha.
Okay. The ones you talked about, Josh, those are the drafted. Those are the draft.
Those are the ones that were drafted, correct?
Okay, all right. So we can work them in as we. Okay, that sounds good.
Yep, absolutely. And so now let's get into the members of New Kids on the Block. And as Brian mentioned before, Mark Wahlberg was originally part of this. He was going to be the 14-year-old addition. Never really got off the ground floor with him. So when we're talking about New Kids on the Block, we're essentially talking about 5 individuals. And anybody who follows music and boy bands, which I'm discovering is probably more than I really even knew that I did, recognizes that there's generally some kind of positions that they fall into and personas that they're going to end up encapsulating. So we'll go through the list. So Jordan Knight was the basically de facto lead singer. And he ended up having a mildly successful solo career. He put out a handful of albums, which is, you know, not an easy thing to do. It's difficult to get top 10 hits, and he was definitely hitting the charts and things of that nature. The other thing that I remember is, you know, when the girls that I was interested in that weren't interested in me, Jordan Knight was generally the second name that came out of their mouths. So Jordan Knight fell into that. He was definitely a big part of the talent in the group. And he definitely got noticed by the girls. So then we get to Donny Wahlberg, Mark Wahlberg's older brother, best known at this point for his family, the Wahlburgers burger chain. His persona was the bad boy. He was the bad boy. He was the hellraiser of the group. When they would go to the hotel, he was the one trashing the hotel rooms. And there was always lines of, well, you know, we always paid for Donnie's shenanigans. We didn't do anything that we couldn't undo, blah, blah, blah. So Donny Wahlberg was the wrecker of the group. So then we get to Joey Mcintyre, who was the actual youngest one. I want to say he was 16 or something to that effect. And he was the young one. There's always a young one in the group. If you were talking about NSYNC, it was Justin Timberlake. It was Nick Carter with the Backstreet Boys. And much to a similarity of those, that's usually the one that the girls were the most attracted to. And Joey Mcintyre was no different. He also went on and had a mildly successful solo career. He was kind of the default second lead singer behind Jordan Knight. So they kind of flip-flopped in the attractiveness to the opposite sex and lead singing kind of roles. They were the 1-2 punch in those situations. So then you had Danny Wood, who was a member of the band. And honestly, I don't know that I have really much more to say about that. There's always one of those. And he's the guy that can go to the supermarket now and be left alone. And he's probably pretty happy about that.
I'm sure he's fine, yeah.
And then finally we had Jonathan Knight, who was Jordan Knight's older brother and the old guy in the band. Every single one of these boy band groups is always going to have an old guy. And in this situation, it is Jonathan Knight. And then, so of course we have our bonus Mark Wahlberg. So we've got 6 spots to fill. So let's get to it.
Good
so I guess,
rundown, Josh. Okay.
Brian, I know that you put a list together and you started pairing some of these guys up. And because of course, why would we do something like this without putting some research into it? And Chris is the guy who's going to talk most eloquently about football and tell us where we're crazy or something to that effect. So Brian, I'm going to give you the honors of picking who we're going to match up first.
Okay. All right. So I had to think about this a little bit. I want to start with Jordan Knight. Now, you said it said consistently he was the lead singer. And I always thought, and I think you said it yourself, I always think the character's name, the heartthrob is the person, but also the front man. So my thought process for this, when I look at the drafted group of rookies, who is the front man of this group? And I had to go with the top, the earliest pick, or the one that was picked first. That was Nick Bolton. So I'm putting that, since he's the highest pick in the rookie class, that makes him the front man. Now, the logic there, that's my logic reasoning for this, because I don't know, have no idea. I don't know the man personally. I don't know when it comes to his singing ability. Like I say, if you're the top pick in the rookie class, that makes you, let's see what you're doing first, because that is the very important, valuable pick. We want to see what the Chiefs did and what they're going to get out of it for the season. Okay.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
So if I'm going to take this as literal as possible, and again, I'm expanding out my net to undrafted rookies. if you want to talk about frontman, Shane Buechele, man, he led the team to a comeback win on Saturday night. So my frontman is the QB out of SMU, formerly University of Texas. So Shane Buechele, you are my Jordan Knight.
Okay, my Jordan Knight. I'm gonna go ahead and go.
That's the quote of the video so far.
Yes. You're my Jordan Knight.
Okay.
Stamp that right now.
Okay. So my Shane Buechele, my Jordan Knight, not Shane Buechele.
Is Jordan
my Shane
Jordan Knight is my
Buechele,
Shane
Jordan
Buechele.
Knight. So for Jordan Knight, I'm gonna key in on the second most sought after, if you will, and where I'm going with this is I picked Noah Gray for this spot. And the reason that I picked Noah Gray is Travis Kelce is clearly the heartthrob of the receiving core as a whole, really, but definitely of the tight ends. And so we don't need Noah Gray to come in and try and take that away. We already have that. He can be our Joey McIntyre if we were talking about the entire team. But what we really need is somebody to come in and stand in and be a good second option from that standpoint, lead singer type. So I picked Noah Gray. The other place that I thought about going was Creed Humphrey, because we need him to be the lead singer of the front line as a rookie. If he takes over that center spot, I think that's going to be a pretty massive accomplishment. And that's something that we could totally look at. So we are 100% in disagreement. I'm gonna go with Noah Gray as my final answer. So I guess, Brian, circling back to you, since we picked three different ones, you started this. What are your thoughts after hearing the reactions that Chris and I had?
Well, see, so I'm gonna come back and do my humble pushback against Noah Gray's placement on this list. Now, Noah Gray, don't get me wrong, very talented, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. However, I put him in the other guy's situation with Daniel Wood, because Travis Kelce is the guy. That is the guy. The other guy would be Noah Gray, because tight end position for the Kansas City Chiefs, we all know that is Travis Kelce. Now, don't get me wrong. I want Noah Gray to develop and be a powerful weapon that Mahomes can throw to. And I want him to do what he has to do to, grow in the position and be a threat offensively. But at this point, at this stage, as a rookie, he's the other guy. That's Daniel Wood.
Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
As far as I got to go with Devin Key on this one. And, Devin Key has been a standout in training camp. I think he's one of the few undrafted rookies to actually be interviewed. But Devin Key, I love you. I appreciate where you're coming from. But, man, if you beat out Juan Thornhill, there's going to be a problem. So I'm hoping that you are not any higher. I mean, it would be ludicrous for him to be any higher in the depth chart than Juan Thornhill. But Devin Key is my guy who I just kind of want to be there. Maybe he's a practice squad guy or he makes it as a fourth safety, but I hope he doesn't have a big role in the team.
So he would be your Danny Wood.
He'd be my Danny Wood, yeah.
Okay, so your Danny Wood would be Devin Key. Okay. So we're going to kind of jump around here a little bit. So we've got 3 votes on a Jordan Knight. So Brian, the biggest pushback that I'm going to give you on your Jordan Knight pick is I absolutely cannot have Nick Bolton anywhere other than Donny Wahlberg. I mean, we want the Wrecker to be our first draft pick that we picked in the second round to be a linebacker that, I would love to see Steve Spagnuolo have to apologize for his intensity and what he does to the other team in post-game conferences and just be like, hey, Nick Bolton served all of his penalties. Nick Bolton played the right way and things of that nature. So that's the only real issue that I have. I understand the logic that you were going with naming him your Jordan Knight, but for me, he's got to be the Donny Wahlberg.
Nah, Donny Wahlberg. That's not Donny Wahlberg. I'll tell you who Donny. Are you ready for my Donny Wahlberg?
I'm ready for your Donny Wahlberg.
Okay, here's my Donny Wahlberg. Might blow your mind a little bit. It's Trey Smith, and I'll tell you why. Okay. Donny Wahlberg, I know, name player, the Wahlburgers, brother to Marky Mark. I get it. All right. But here's the thing. maybe you don't know this, Donny Wahlberg was in the movie called The Sixth Sense. Okay. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it, because we all know at the end, it was the most surprising thing at the end. And I expect a lot of surprises out of Trey Smith this season, because that kid, he is tough. He competes for the job. He's mature. He finds a way to get on the field. You know what? He's going to surprise everyone. That's Trey Smith. That's the Sixth Sense. That's my Sixth Sense player.
And he
That's
was
Donny
drafted
Wahlberg.
in the 6th round too.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Whoa. Okay. Who is Donny Wahlberg in The Sixth Sense? He's the
guy,
patient student at the beginning, right?
Yeah, he has that guy. Yeah, that was him.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd look that up, but yeah, I was like, oh hey, yeah, Sixth Sense. I love that movie, and I had to think about it, and I was like, oh yeah, you play the dude at the beginning that set the course, the story and the emotion there. So
Got it. Okay.
not gonna spoil it for anyone. You got to go see. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch it. It's a good one.
Yep. I mean, the movie's almost 30 years old, so
It's
if you haven't seen it, it's time.
It's on you. If you haven't seen it, it's on you. If we're gonna talk about it, tune out now. But it's on you if you haven't seen it yet. It's 30 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost 30 years old, so that's not our fault anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so this is not going to be as easy of a consensus as I thought it would be.
Easy. Go to putt. I don't know what. How does that end? I don't have a line for that.
I don't know.
You want easy? Play Monopoly with my 4-year-old son. That's
exactly. Okay, so let's fill out. So we have 3 of them. Chris, who's your Donny Wahlberg?
Okay, so remind me who Donny Wahlberg is, the guy who surprises people, or the famous?
He's Marky Mark's older brother, and he's the guy who would trash the hotel rooms and
he's also in The Sixth Sense.
I'm gonna go with Trey Smith, not for the M. Night Shyamalan reference, but I'm actually. I mean, Trey Smith has kind of come in as a bit of a guy with a nasty streak, and from what I'm hearing, and he's actually infusing quite a bit of attitude on the offensive line. Similar to what Kelechi Osemele did, probably more so than Kelechi did last year. So, man, he seems like one of those guys. I don't know how Trey Smith. I hear he's a tremendous guy off the field. So I'm not trying to imply that he's always got this nasty streak. Plus, he held a coat drive in college just to show how much of a stand-up guy this is. But
when it's time to go to work, though, right? When
it's time to go to work, man. He's old Donny Wahlberg for me.
Nice.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so we've got the 3 there. So Joey McIntyre, Brian. Who do you have for Joey McIntyre? Okay, you've got stronger opinions on this than I thought you would.
I the more I read, the more I learned. I was like, you know what? I kind of see this. I see this playing out. I get it now. So Joey McIntyre, as we all know, was not part of the, he was not, there's like a group of friends and he was kind of brought in. Yep. And he had a tough time meshing with it's kind of hard. Like you have 4 kind of friends who've been together for a while, and then you have another guy coming in. So you have to kind of like get used to him being around and what kind of his attitude and his personality is and all that. So since he wasn't a long-term friend of the group, he found it hard to mesh. I'm going to say Creed Humphrey, center from Oklahoma. Is that right? Oklahoma. Looks like he's going to be competing consistently for his spot, and he's going to have to mesh with the system. And he's going to have to compete with that spot each week, even though he's rookie and everyone competes, but he's going to have to, I think, really, really dig deep and get after that. So he's going to have to mesh. That's the thing. That is the Joey McIntyre situation. Is we got to mesh, going to mold them together.
Chris, what do you got?
Well, so I mean, if Joey is the looker of the band, I'm thinking of someone who is, Joey was born with those looks, obviously. So what I'm thinking is, okay, who's really born with talent, who's walks off the bus and looks the part. And I'm actually going to go with Josh Kando on this one. Now, I'm not trying to say that Josh Kando is going to be a significant factor on the team this year, but I mean, he looks all the part and is maybe the best athlete that they drafted this year. So that's my Joey McIntyre.
Gotcha. So where I'm going with on this one is Cornell Powell, wide receiver from Clemson. And the reason I'm going with that is that the prima donna is the one everybody's looking at, is always a wide receiver. And there's nothing that we need more than somebody to come in and just grab that spotlight and be the one that everybody's looking at the wide receiver position. So that's where I had. So I'm going to finish out Danny Wood as the guy who was just there. So Chris said Devin Key. Brian said
Out of
Noah
turn.
Gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine.
Hey, this is a conversation. You go when you're ready. You get fired up.
No,
this is
exactly.
Ready, go.
exactly. And so who I went with, I didn't make him the lead singer of the offensive line. So I went with Creed Humphrey right here. And I'm not saying that I agree with this. I think it's really unfortunate. One of the things that's been said numerous times that the biggest downside to John Madden not being a thing anymore is, and because he's old, retired and everything like that, is the amount of just knowledge and appreciation you can get out of the offensive line from a sportscaster. And there's just not a whole lot of that there these days. So the offensive linemen are just kind of the guys that the less you hear about them, generally speaking, the better they probably are. And then all of a sudden you see that somebody from your team is up for a Pro Bowl nod and you're rooting for him. And so, not saying that I agree that that's how this should be, but if we're playing the cards that we're dealt, the absolute best thing that could happen is if we're making the, Hanging Tough album and getting nominated for Grammys, which is the equivalent of sending a bunch of players to the Pro Bowl and winning a Super Bowl, then there's worse things than you can have than the anchor lineman who came in and stole the job as a rookie and took that over. So I have Creed Humphrey there. So then what we have last is Jonathan Knight, the old guy and older brother of Jordan Knight. So Brian, what are you thinking there?
I had nothing. I wrote down Ric Flair. Does that count?
Ric Flair.
My brain went out of associating New Kids on the Block with the rookies, and I started associating them with professional wrestlers. It's like old guy. Oh, Ric Flair. Yeah, this is Ric Flair. so I'm flipping the script on this one. Johnny Knight. Honestly, I have no idea how to play the old guy, but they're also young and who's the most experienced? I don't know, Josh, I'll defer to you. Is there maybe an experienced play here? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I think that when we were talking about this a little bit before, that you mentioned that this could be
I got Cornell Powell here.
Cornell Powell. Yeah. Yep. So Cornell Powell is the guy who was the oldest. I mean, this was the tough one for me to pick as well, and I believe I ended up going with Kando here as well, just because he didn't fit into any of the other spots that I had, and Kando's where I ended up with. So
all right,
fair enough.
Yeah, and then the last one we have our wild card bonus, which is Mark Wahlberg, who was there for a hot minute. And for me, I had Trey Smith there. And my logic on that was he was the last guy picked. He was the other offensive lineman aside from Creed Humphrey. There was some fanfare around Creed Humphrey. And nobody really remembers that Mark Wahlberg was part of the New Kids on the Block, and he's doing perfectly fine. He's gone out and done more than probably all of these guys combined. And so I'm thinking of this as there's nothing that I think would be more awesome than to be looking back and Trey Smith is, a Hall of Fame caliber offensive lineman. It's just like, wait a minute, he was part of that 2021 draft class that had Nick Bolton, who was a stud, and Creed Humphrey, who made it into the Ring of Fame, and a wrecker like Kando and stuff like that. So that was my thought process there.
Nice. All right. Okay. Mark Wahlberg for me was Joshua Kando.
Yep.
So we're talking, we got all the tools we need, right? Speed, strength, agility, talent, natural talent, length. And he's got all of the, when he's healthy, right? So we're talking when he's healthy, and he's a lot of potential when he's healthy. Now, I use that for Mark Wahlberg because, he had all the tools. He's got the singing talent. We all know he's got amazing singing voice. He's got the performance talent. He works out. He's a quintuple threat, maybe a sextuple threat. I don't know. Is that a thing? I'm making it up as I go. But if Mark Wahlberg has done it, he can do it. He's the star of so many of my favorite movies. So I'm telling you, when I look at Kendo, this guy's got all the talent, all the coaches sing his praises. I'm like, that's Mark Wahlberg right there.
All right, so Chris, who do you have as the Mark Wahlberg?
All right, I'm going to go a little bit unconventional here because this guy was drafted last year, but he opted out. And to be honest with you, the less we
you're
hear,
going with Niang.
the less we hear of Lucas Niang, the better. He's kind of fallen into the right tackle position due to Mike Rimmer's back injury, and he's not letting go of it. I heard that he actually really showed out well on Saturday night and has been very good in camp. So if he holds on to that right tackle spot, I think it's a really good thing for the offensive line.
All right. That's awesome. I really, really like the way that everybody went with that. So now the conundrum that I'm in is I've got to get this put into a piece of writing for Arrowhead One by this Saturday that I want to embed this video in so people can listen to. So we've got to come to a consensus on this in a way that I can put this on, pen to paper, if you will. And I didn't see a whole lot of backing down on some of these. So I think where I'm going to start is by going with the one that I feel the most strongly about. And that's got to be Nick Bolton as Donny Wahlberg. Sure. I can't do anything but that. So now that we've taken Nick Bolton out of two other situations, Nick Bolton cannot be... Actually, the only place that it would be taken out of is the lead singer. So we've got Shane Buechele and Noah Gray. So for Jordan Knight, the lead singer, Brian thinks that he's Nick Bolton because he was the first pick in the draft. So obvious lead singer. Chris went with Shane Buechele because of course he did. And the quarterback is the lead singer. And I went with Noah Gray because he was the second fiddle to Travis Kelce, which is not a bad thing to be second fiddle to. And if you can truly be an elite second fiddle, you've got your Garfunkel, you've got your Oates. They were both really famous. So then the next place we went was Donny Wahlberg, and Brian went with Trey Smith as the wrecker. I went with Nick Bolton as the wrecker, and Chris went with Trey Smith as the wrecker. So I have to admit that you guys might be onto something that I wasn't, since you both independently, through research after a text thread that we had earlier today, picked the same guy. So there you go. Good point taken. We get into Joey McIntyre, who was the young one, the guy who had to fit in, who wasn't part of the group of friends. That was a great piece of information that Brian pointed out. And he was also the one the girls went gaga for. So I went with Cornell Powell, wide receiver angle. Chris went with Josh Kaindow as the guy who just totally looked the part, which I think that's a great comparison as well. And I think Brian did the exact same thing. Creed Humphrey came in, had to mesh, and looks the part, and ended up taking the spot whether the others wanted him to or not.
Yeah.
All right. Danny Wood, the fifth member, is what we're going with here. And so Chris picked Devin Key, and some of that I think was saying Devin Key's balling out in the camps and he's balling out in the preseason games, but he kind of doesn't really want to see him take Juan Thornhill's spot.
He didn't necessarily ball out too much Saturday. There's a pretty infamous clip of him getting burnt on that 80-yard touchdown pass. But
yeah. Okay. Yeah. Trey Lance's first pass. Okay. Yep. Point taken. But Chris, I know, is a big fan of Juan Thornhill based on the new Arrowhead Kingdom column that came out. So go to arrowheadkingdom.org, read the column that he wrote. You can tell that Chris is a big fan of the guy and just wants to see the PFF numbers.
He needs to be out there for this defense to be their best. But
exactly. Look different than it is. So Chris, in your estimation, the best chance that our defense has is our linebackers get their act together because they're the weakest link goodbye. And then Juan Thornhill truly becomes the structured, strong safety in the defensive backfield to
every down safety.
The honey badger do whatever he's going to do.
Yeah, not to be, and even in the, I don't know if it was just a base package thing with him, which is why they went with Sorensen at the strong side, but he's got to be out there on every down, not just on dime and nickel situations. I think that's really where, we'll start to see something that's closer to 2019 and not 2020.
Yep. Do you think health has anything to do with that?
They've been talking. I've heard comments saying, Andy Reid says that he's still working back, trusting the leg again. It's been about a year and a half now because he injured it in week 17. I hope it's just that and it's not, they're not seeing what they need to see from him in the practice field, because he's, read the column, because he adds so much value to the defense, and he graded out so well his rookie year that, I mean, he can be a Pro Bowl safety hands down. He's just got to, get himself back. So I really hope he does.
Yep. And again, definitely read that column. Chris definitely gets into the stats, and it's great. So that was Danny Wood. So next we have Jonathan Knight, Jordan's older brother, the old guy. And Brian, you might have won this one with Ric Flair. And glad to see that you finished this assignment and didn't lose focus or anything like that. Chris went with Cornell Powell as the oldest guy in the draft class, so I appreciate the literal take on that. And I took Kando there, and I think a lot of that was mainly just not being able to, in my mind, assign him somewhere. So then the last one we get to is the bonus. Mark Wahlberg, the guy who was not in the New Kids on the Block, and was not, I believe, was the band that did that Everybody Walk the Dinosaur song, right?
It was on the Walk the Dinosaur song?
Yeah, it was not, I believe. Let me look here.
Oh, was not. Okay, I did not know that. Catchy jam, though. It's in my head now.
Oh, that's a hell of a catchy jam. Yeah, was not. And here's the thing that I remember about that song more than anything. Do you guys remember the movie The Dream Team? And it was the mental patients trying to go to a Yankees ball game.
No, I never saw that.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a funny movie. Yeah.
So that movie is incredible. It's Michael Keaton, Christopher Lloyd, and I'm going to bring up the IMDb page.
Young Frankenstein.
You got me sold at Christopher Lloyd.
The father from Everyone Loves Raymond was in that.
Yeah.
Peter Boyle.
Yeah.
Oh, he was so funny.
But so the whole point of it is that they're a group therapy session, and kind of like a boy band. Michael Keaton's the bad boy. He's the guy that's the heartthrob hitting on all the girls and things of that nature. So they get clearance to take a field trip, and so their doctor decides he wants to take him to a baseball game to give him a taste of what real life is like. And so they go, and they're driving through New York City, and the doctor gets mugged when he gets out of the car. And so you've got 4 mental patients running around through the city. And they're trying to figure everything out. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, Michael Keaton, Christopher Lloyd, Peter Boyle, and Stephen Furst was the guy who was the most kind of messed up or whatever. But all things considered, that was a really, really good movie that I remember. And Walk the Dinosaur was probably, if you had to pick one song from that would be that song.
It's also in the TV show Vice Presidents on HBO, which is the main one of the co-main characters. Before
Danny McBride.
That show, Vice Principals.
Vice Principals, yeah. With Walton Goggins, Danny McBride and Walton Goggins.
Oh,
my wife loved that show. Yeah.
When you think people can't get any worse, like every time I see Danny McBride play people like Eastbound and Down, we're like, there's no way this guy can get. They find new ways to make you think how terrible they are, and that show does not disappoint in the same regard. I'm like, you guys are horrifying, and they keep getting worse. When he's like singing that song, "Walk the Dinosaur," he's actually quite endearing. So I'm like,
boom, boom, like a boom, 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 like a boom.
Yeah, one more good Danny McBride is "The Righteous Gemstones." If you haven't seen that,
so good.
But
That's great, catchy jam. That misbehaving. Go Google that and get angry at me later, because that's a catchy jam.
That's great. All right, so we're 45 minutes in, and we're talking about New Kids on the Block and Chiefs rookies, and this is a real thing that we're doing here. This is great.
Men in our 30s and born in the early 80s. This is what we talk about.
Exactly. I turned 40 this year, so speak for yourself.
So do I. I turned 40 in 2 months.
Okay, you guys.
I did it 2 months ago. Anyway, so then our bonus, Mark Wahlberg, who was part of this. So I went with Trey Smith, just based on being the guy you don't remember was there, but went on to be great. That's what I want for him. Brian went with Josh Kando as the guy who blazed his own path. And Chris went an even further step with blazing the own path and picked Lucas Niang, because he's technically going to be a rookie this year based on opting out. So more than anything, I want to thank you guys for really taking this assignment to the limit. I knew you wouldn't disappoint, but I'm impressed at this point.
When Josh texts you and says, "Hey, I want the rookie class to be assigned to each player and new kids on the block," you do it, and you come out swinging.
Yeah. All right, so we're swinging, which was a John Anderson song. His twangy thing, we're just a swinging. See if we can go down any other kind of weird paths. Okay, so I don't think we really have anything else to talk about. A lot of the stuff that we spent the off season just hashing and rehashing, it seems to have, for the most part, worked itself out. And we're going to go into a regular football season. It looks like we're going to have fans in the stands. It looks like there's going to be tailgates put together. Another plug for the Arrowhead Kingdom organization. We've got apparel that we're getting ready to start pushing out. We've got well over 60 watch group chapters throughout the country. Brian, I told you about the tagline that I want to start throwing out for Arrowhead Kingdom, right?
I don't think so. Have you?
All right. So Arrowhead Kingdom, we are the largest community of Chiefs fans, which is, of course, the best team in the world, which makes us the best fan community in the world. So we are the biggest fan community of the best team in the world, which makes us the best fan community in the world. And on that note,
I like that. You know why I like that? You know why I like that? You know why I like that?
Dallas. Sorry.
Dallas.
I like that because it's mathematically accurate. Like you can't disprove it because it's mathematical.
Exactly.
So it's math. Can't
it's a theorem that we've proved,
It has proved. It's proved. So.
Or hypotenuses, yeah.
It's a hypotenuse. No, I mean it's an asymptote. You're gonna
the scientists with their hypotenuses.
Which I was hypotenuse.
Exactly. Okay, so before we get out of here and send us all on to our merry ways and me to the drawing board to write this column, Chris, what do you have for a last take?
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. So if you notice behind me, it is the famous 47th and Mission location, the original Oklahoma Joe's that was started in 1996, 25 years to the day. I found out today. So this is a bit of an impromptu thing, but if you have not been to any of the Oklahoma Joe's, or now, sorry, Joe's Kansas City.
You're not sorry.
Themselves. I'm really not, but go to any one of the locations. But I mean, if you really want the best and real experience, I mean, go to the place behind me, get yourself a Z-Man, get yourself a Rocket Pig, whatever you want, man. Everything there is just delish and phenomenal.
Yeah, Z-Man's the way to go. I remember when I went to the AFC Championship game, Super Bowl year against the Titans. That's the first place we went when we got to town, and we were 30 seconds away from meeting Paul Rudd. He was getting in his car as we were parking. Cool. And he had taken pictures with anybody that wanted to, which was totally cool. So let's talk about Paul Rudd.
You have a pretty good opportunity to run into someone famous because it's such a staple in the city, and like pretty much all opposing teams and celebrities will go to the gas station. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean that place is just a gem. The food's great. Yeah, totally agree with you. Brian, you have a good last take this week.
Yeah. So yesterday I took my son, you can see the stamp there. I took my son to his first Major League Baseball game with the Kansas City Royals. They defeated the Houston Astros, and it was a great game. With Salvi had a two-run single, and brought us up to put us in the position to win the whole game. But I got to say, my son didn't know how he would react to like a big audience, big crowd, but he loved it. He loved every part of it. He loved taking the photos and running up and down the field, and loved the playing, loved the, just the whole experience they have for the families there. And one of the things I was enjoying about the game was just the amount of talent, right? When you get to professional level sports. I remember sitting next to a guy who he's a Houston Astros fan, but just like hitting a shot, like a choppy shot to third base, and the third baseman threw it to first base. It was like a frozen rope from his knees and got the out, and just how it seemed so routine, and just the ocean of talent between that and maybe a high school player like that. I mean, he made it look so easy, and like, yeah, but you watch high school sports, and like my nephew, when I go to his games, like making that throw at that age, you're like, everyone's like out of their seats excited because that's a hard throw. And so it's fun to see that kind of talent on display. And my son had the greatest time. I asked him if he wants to go back to see the Royals. He goes, absolutely. We got him his jersey. And he even got on Crown Vision, the Jumbotron. And so we got a photo of that. So it was a very awesome day yesterday, and expensive day because I got a new shirt, he got a new jersey, we got some souvenirs, but all well worth it because one of my earliest memories, I believe it happens around the age of 4 years old for me. So maybe this might be his earliest memory. We'll see what happens. But I remember when I think of my first memory, my mom always tells me you're around 4 years old whenever that happens. So maybe this is when that's happening. So if that's the case, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Great context. That's about the time that I remember my first memory. It's around 4th birthday, things of that nature.
Yeah,
so
I remember my first memory. I was in line. I think I was at Silver Dollar City, and they were measuring me if I can get on a ride. And I put my hands up, saying, "I'm 4." And I was very adamant that I'm 4, but I didn't understand that they were measuring my height, not my age. So
that's great. That's great. Yeah, I'm gonna keep mine pretty simple. In addition to the NFL preseason starting this last weekend, as I think I've made pretty clear here, there's very few sports that I've met that I'm not a major fan of. The other one that started this last weekend that got me excited was the most of the international soccer leagues. So the Barclays Premier League is what I follow the most. As I've mentioned before, I am a fan of the Tottenham Hotspur, and the defending champions of the Premier League is Manchester City, and they've been projected to bowl over everybody in every single category, including taking my favorite team from Tottenham. Well, Tottenham went out and beat them 1-0 in the first game of the season. The first match, they won 1-0 for people like Brit Chief that may be watching this from across the pond. And so that was very exciting. The team is in a bit of an upheaval, and not even an upheaval as much as just a transition. They have a new manager. They brought in a bunch of new players, and there just seems to be some change happening. So to go out and beat Manchester City in front of an electric crowd of a full Tottenham Hotspur stadium was just incredible to watch. And it was a great way to kick off the Premier League. And then on top of that, my Oakland Raiders of the Premier League team I hate the most, Arsenal, the Gunners, got their heads beaten 2-0 by Brentford, which is the team that has been just barely missing getting called up to the Premier League for the past handful of years. And they finally made it up, and they came out that way. So that was pretty great. But the last thing that I'll say about that is we are getting into the part of the year that I just absolutely love, where you can take a Sunday and you can get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and watch a Premier League match, and you can grab some breakfast, and you can go see your friends and watch an NFL football game. Then you can go home and pass out on the couch while you're watching the 3 o'clock afternoon game. And then you can get up and watch Sunday Night Football when you do something like order pizza. And then you can go to bed and wake up and not want to go to work on Monday. And somewhere in there as well, you kind of sleep through half of the NASCAR race and turn on the end of everything. And for a couple of months there, you get a little bit of baseball, you get a little bit of NBA, and you can literally just waste a Sunday doing nothing but watching sports. And if you're a fan of all of them, you can do nothing but watch sports, and it's great.
I think your comment, I just consumed 8,000 calories just hearing that.
Yeah. I consumed 8 professional sports matches and 8,000 calories.
Hell yeah.
And that's how I spend my Sundays. And
gotta have your concessions.
Yeah, and during September, I might go out and hit some golf balls. I don't know. I mean, that's just
the most wonderful time of the year.
Where I'm at right now. So yeah. But hey, again, thanks guys for contributing to this New Kids on the Block thing. And good night, Chiefs Kingdom. Good night, Arrowhead Kingdom.
Go Chiefs.
Chiefs.